Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
Of course, we are still talking about Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man, where all of this began. And back on the show with us is Heidi Bennett from the Vibrant Visionaries podcast. Hey, Heidi.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys.
Absolutely. Today, we are digging into minute 20, which is all about first meetings. It starts with Tony not remembering meeting Yinsen and ends with Abu excited to meet the great Tony Stark. This is a, Pete, we never did this. The last couple minutes, we did the little IMDb top 4 for some of the people on the cast and crew. I realized since we only just started that, we never did that for Robert Downey Jr. Do either of you guys have any guesses? What are the top 4 films listed for good old Robert Downey Jr. on IMDb?
Oh.
Without peeking.
Well, I think this one has got to be up there.
Okay.
I know that the top 4 isn't necessarily the top 4 grossing or top 4 most, it's a weird algorithm.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I'm just going to throw a wild card in there and say Soapdish is one of them.
Oh, such a fun movie.
Oh.
Okay, Soapdish, Iron Man.
I'm thinking they're going to lean heavily Marvel right now, just because of the kind of turnaround his career has made. So I'm gonna go with my second pick as Avengers.
The first Avengers.
I'm gonna say the first Avengers because again, like the first Iron Man, it was the biggest of the news.
Sure. Okay.
In the series at the time, right?
What I was thinking is maybe one of the what was the other one he did with the Sherlock Holmes? One of those.
Oh, Sherlock Holmes. And there's yes.
Okay.
I concur.
Okay.
I concur with Sherlock. It's another first, a big first.
And that was another franchise that he kind of jumped into.
Yeah.
Good choices. So you guys got 3 out of the 4. I'm sad to say Soapdish did not show up.
Okay, that would have been awesome if that's the
would
one.
Have been. That would have been great. That would have been so exciting.
No, Iron Man's not there. It's Soapdish.
Right. Yes, we have Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes, weirdly, Iron Man 3, and the Avengers. Yeah, isn't that a strange one to throw in there?
Wow,
I love Iron Man 3.
So, but that's these IMDb top 4s. It's always like, oh, and then there's that one. That's a weird choice, but there it is.
A Scanner Darkly, like weird Wonder Boys.
Well, I'll be curious to see if you guys go back and look maybe a month from now or so and see if anything's changed. Because it doesn't stay the same.
Because you think everybody's going to jump on Soapdish after hearing the show?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I want to hear the IMDb people. Like, why is the algorithm pulling this one up? What's been the cause of change for Soapdish to rise to the top 4?
So good.
Oh. Well, so we've got Robert Downey Jr. here and Yinsen in this particular minute, continuing their conversation, but interrupted very briefly. Although this does tie in nicely because it does have that moment with Yinsen where he reveals that he was at this at Bern at this event with Tony, and they had met before, and that kind of ties into that meeting in the comic book that I had talked about in a few minutes ago. But then they're interrupted. We have some talking through the door, and then Abu Bakr, played by Syed Badrea, comes in along with several of his men. We have Ahmed and Omar, and it looks like probably about 4 other background guys coming in, plus a bunch in the background. Ahmed is played by Ahmed, so it's an easy one to remember. And then Omar is played by Fahim Fazli. So that is the group that we have coming in here.
This is another one of those great establishing sequences, right? I mean, here we have this minute establishes the external threat, the threat of the external world. After his internal threat has been resolved, he now is not going to die. He now understands his relationship to his savior, and now we see his captors. And it is, once again, 3 for 3, just very efficiently presented story development.
Yeah, the design of the storytelling here works very efficiently. And I think that what's interesting about this is it sets up this tension of being kidnapped by terrorists in the Middle East. And I mean, sadly, it's just something that we have kind of come to know and understand over the last several decades, and just kind of some of the horrors that go along with that. And just putting ourselves in Tony's shoes, being in this horrific place, what that could mean. I think they smartly, in the comic book, tied it into Vietnam for the time when the comics were written. And as we've discussed before, transitioning the whole thing to Afghanistan makes a lot of sense. And instantly, it gives us a sense of what Tony is in for with these guys.
Which is not good. And especially that he comes in and starts speaking Arabic, right? And expects or is it not Arabic? What is it?
No, well, that's an interesting point that we should talk about at some point, but I'll let you make your point. Yes, he's speaking Arabic.
So he comes in and he's speaking Arabic, and that's an interesting, if not obvious, show or demonstration of power, right, of authority here, that he expects another prisoner to do the translation, and he'll just get caught up, right? We just know that that's going to happen, or that Tony is going to be put in his place by speaking a language that is foreign to him. What was your point about the language?
Well, it's just interesting because as I learned I'm amazed at what you can do with the internet these days. Talking to people on Reddit, there's a whole Reddit translator element where you can say, hey, what are they saying? What language is this? And within minutes, people have done it all for you. It's amazing. I had a lot of fun over on Reddit, having people watch these minutes and translate it all for me.
That's amazing.
And initially, I went in to the minute thinking that it was Urdu, because the language that we heard in the very beginning of the film, when we have that moment in the first 4 or 5 minutes when Tony is caught by the terrorists, and he kind of comes to in that horrific moment where he's in a chair, he's surrounded by terrorists, they're talking into a video camera, and he has no idea what they're saying. Right before we cut to the title, they were speaking Urdu. And so I assumed, they're speaking Urdu. And so I asked somebody to translate the Urdu, and they're like, he's not speaking Urdu. It sounds like Arabic with an Egyptian accent. I was like, that's interesting. So it's a totally different language at this point. And so we're going to have to kind of keep track of that and see what other languages might pop up here. But as it turns out, Syed Bedrea, who is speaking the Arabic, is actually Egyptian born. And so I guess it would make sense that he would be speaking Arabic with an Egyptian accent.
That's fascinating. And thank you, Internet.
And thank you, Internet. Absolutely.
Is it, because we have the translation going on in real time, is it close? Did you come up with anything that was, that was different?
It's actually pretty accurate as far as when Yinsen is translating it. What it basically said was, hello and 100 times welcome to Mr. Tony Stark, the most famous murderer and killer of killers in the history of America. I am proud to know you. And so to that end, it's pretty much verbatim as far as what Yinsen is saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Syed Bedrea, our actor playing Abu, he went to NYU Film School. His first job, this is very interesting, was an assistant to actor-director Anthony Perkins.
No kidding.
Yeah, so interesting. And this seems like a huge change, he ended up working with James Cameron on True Lies as his assistant, or one of his assistants.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's been around for quite a while. He actually at one point created his own production company called Zoom in Focus, through which he works to tell Arabic American stories. He's directed and produced a number of projects. He did a documentary called Saving Egyptian Film Classics. He also has done some short films. In 2008, when he did this, he also appeared as the comedic Palestinian cab driver in everybody's favorite Adam Sandler movie, You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
I have a little soft spot for that movie in in my heart. It's quite ridiculous.
Somebody has to, and I guess it should be you.
Well, you know what? I think why I don't want to go on a Zohan, tangent, but I am touched when something like in that film, he becomes a hairdresser and also makes love to a variety of women, but it ends up, that they're all ages and sizes and everything like that. And it's just so rare that you see films where, elder folks are acting in a sensual fashion and people of different sizes and shapes get to be sexy, I gave it a gold star for that.
Well, that's great to hear, actually. As much as I don't like Adam Sandler or his films, it is nice that they did that. And I will say, just reading about Syed, I'm really impressed and intrigued by him and his career. He's done a lot of work to bring more attention to Arabic Americans in the industry, and by creating his own production company and really kind of pushing that sort of stuff. I think it's exciting to see, and it makes me want to watch more of his projects.
That's just one of the things I love about getting to know people behind the scenes, or in front of the camera, behind the camera, everybody that goes into these films and how they get made, because they all have stories and they all have other projects and different things that they're bringing to us. And it's a great way for us to connect with people from all over the world and from all different backgrounds and experiences. And yeah, I love it.
Now, do you think you can guess any of his IMDb top 4?
Well, I have to admit that I'm actually staring right now. So staring at it. So I know. So.
Okay then. Well, they are, You Don't Mess with the Zohan. So that one's on there. And then Iron Man comes in second. And then a smaller film he did called Chicago Mirage. And then Stargate, of all films, which that's one I have not seen in ages. But he plays the Arabic interpreter in that film.
I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
We have Ahmed on his on screen left to him. Ahmed's IMDb top 4 are Iron Man, also You Don't Mess with the Zohan, Virtuosity, and Executive Decision.
Virtuosity. Wow.
Another film I haven't seen in a very long time.
Wow. We need to do that movie on the show. Denzel. Denzel and Russell Crowe goes bananas.
That was a crazy movie.
It was so crazy.
Ahmed was born in Egypt, but he moved to the U.S. when he was only a month old. He and then grew up in California. He has been a regular performer at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles since 2000, and he headlines a specialty show at the Comedy Store called Arabian Nights. That was the brainchild of the owner, and features comics of Middle Eastern descent.
Super cool.
Huh. Very cool, yeah. And then over on screen right, we have Fahim Fazli as Omar. His IMDb top 4 are American Sniper, 12 Strong, Iron Man, and Rock the Casbah. I'm going to be really curious when we hit somebody who doesn't actually have Iron Man in their top 4.
Right.
He was born in Afghanistan, so he actually is playing, type, I guess, in this particular moment, because he's somebody in Afghanistan. He has a really interesting story. He actually came to the U.S. as a refugee when he was a teenager.
Wow.
When he was a young adult, he and his family supported the resistance, and then they fled to Pakistan. I think when Russians invaded, they fled to Pakistan, and then eventually United States, and then California. And he actually ended up going back to Afghanistan as an interpreter with the Marines in 2009, 2010. And he has written a memoir called Fahim Speaks, which he released in 2012, which received the first place for a biography from the Military Writers Society of America.
Very interesting.
No kidding.
the stuff you learn about these people who are like bit characters in these movies. I am so fascinated by this.
It's very funny because he is one of those faces that looks, once you see him and you see his face, not just in this movie, but in other contexts, he's a face that you totally recognize. Like I know these other properties that I've seen him in. He's got a healthy credits list too.
Yeah, 42 credits right now, still working in plenty of projects. In fact, Vice, the big Adam McKay film coming out later this year, he's in that one.
Right.
So this is what's going on in this particular minute. What else? What is the piece of paper Abu is holding? I find it very mysterious and very curious about that now because we don't ever get to find out in this minute.
Oh, that's right. That's the cliffhanger on this minute. We don't know. It's a recipe. I think it's a recipe for a stew. Probably lamb.
Do you think that he saw what Yinsen was doing with the beans and was like, oh no,
yes.
Let me write this down for you.
Yes, you're doing it wrong. That's why he's in here. Thank you, killer of many. And here is my recipe for stew. That's what happened. It's, I have to say, this is one of my favorite introductions of our sort of local antagonist here. The hero shot is really good when he comes in and he has that sort of messianic arms in the air.
Totally.
It's a beautiful shot, and it's a beautiful kind of welcome to the cave, walking from the far distance and landing right smack in front of us, like he's on stage. So charismatic.
Yeah, he has a big, beautiful smile, and yeah.
Also, he's a bad guy. Like, I get that, but
totally, I love it.
But yes, he is so smiley and happy, and it is off-putting, especially after the introduction that we had with Yinsen, which was the creepy cave potato.
Oh God, that's a great comparison. That's right. We had creepy cave tuber. He was introduced so scary, and this guy is introduced as kind of a local hero.
Yeah. It's interesting the way they play with that. So
super.
In the script, it's interesting. Yinsen, this is just a small point, but it's going to be something to think about between this minute and the next. Yinsen says, as Abu and his men come in, he says, "Listen to me. Whatever they ask you, refuse. You understand? You must refuse." We have none of that conversation in the script as it is, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over these next couple minutes. So something to keep in mind. Anything else, you guys?
That's all I've got here.
Not from me. Yeah, I just was sort of enjoying viewing this, but I don't have any more comments.
Well, Heidi, thank you again so much for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one more round with you, which should be a fun one. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, where can people find you online and on your shows?
Yeah, check out Vibrant Visionaries. Those are my conversations with interesting filmmakers, writers, other just super creative, interesting people who have cool projects going on, and we just sort of talk about process, their projects. We talk about, I've studied compassion in great detail, so we sort of rope in thoughts about compassion and self-compassion and how those play in our ways of connecting with other people, connecting with ourselves, how we collaborate, how we communicate. And so that's sort of an extra little part of it that I haven't really talked about in previous minutes with you guys, but it's a big part of how I work with coaching people. And when I work with creatives and have studied what it is that our pain points are, a lot of it seems to come back to this element of being more compassionate with ourselves and with those around us. So that's sort of a running theme. And again, that's at vibrantvisionaries.com. And then for my movies by minutes, it's spinaltapminute.com and cabinminutecast.com for the one that's about the cabin in the woods.
Well, I adore all of what you just said. I can't believe it took us to minute 4 to hear you talk about that part. That was awesome. You think you know somebody.
I'm trying to, give everybody a chance to get to know me before I start laying in the...
But that is it, everybody, for today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, make sure you subscribe to the show for free over at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us on our Discord chat room, which is also free. You can find the link on our website. And then, of course, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, why don't you become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until next time, true believers.